All in, all in. I said all in. Yeah, I should call it. Yeah. And if you have aces, it's so sick.
Wow.
Ace.
Wow.
It's better this way. Coolered.
Today we will be heading to Great Canadian Casino for a session, and I will see you guys in a bit when we get there. The very first hand, I sit down and pick up pocket kings at under the gun. I open to $10. Everyone folds except the button and the blinds. It's four-way into a flop of King 9-7 with 2 diamonds. The small blind and big blind checks to me. The very first hand, I pick up a premium hand and hit top set. I'm just thinking right now, what a way to start this session. I c-bet for $30. The button and small blind calls. The turn is a jack. The small blind checks. I will for sure be betting. At this point, I'm just looking to set up to get everything in by the river as long as a diamond doesn't hit, or a 4-liner to a straight doesn't show. There are a couple straight possibilities now, but that's just going to be a cooler I have to take if someone has it. My hand is too strong to not go for max value from all weaker sets, 2 pairs, or draws. I decide with a sizing of $120. Only the button calls. The river is a brick. I follow through with my plan and go all in. The villain calls. We table our hands, and the villain shows 10-8 of diamonds for a huge flop and turned straight. Well played, sir. In my head, I'm still thinking of the same thought I had at the beginning of this hand. What a way to start this session. This hand, I pick up King 9 on the button. Everyone folds to me and I open to $10. Both of the blinds call. It's 3-way into a flop of 9-7-4 rainbow. Everyone checks to me. Amazing flop for me as I have a pretty sneaky top pair, good kicker, on a board that's not really supposed to be good for my range. I c-bet for $20, targeting value from any pair or draw. Only the small blind calls. The turn is a king. The small blind checks. My hand just keeps getting better and better. I bet $40. The villain calls. The river is a 4 of clubs. The villain checks again. This card completes a backdoor flush and trip 4s now counterfeits me. But it's not very likely the villain will have called 2 barrels with bottom pair. I think I can value bet here, targeting non-believing 9x or pocket pairs like 10s or jacks. I decide to go with a sizing of $100. The villain folds. This hand, I pick up ace-jack of diamonds at under the gun. I open to $10. Only the low jack and small blind calls. It's 3-way into a flop of queen-jack 7 with 2 spades and 1 diamond. The small blind checks. Even though I have second pair, top kicker, and some backdoors, I'm not going to lead out multi-way. I check. The low jack also checks. The turn is the 4 of spades. The small blind checks. There's now a flush possibility on board, but I decide to bet now since my hand could be in the lead and could use some protection, as well as get value from some weaker pairs like worse Jack X hands or even 7x. I bet $15. The low jack calls and the small blind folds. The river is a king. That's 1 more overcard to my pair, so not a great card. My hand does have showdown value though. I could hope for a check or check call the showdown, but I decide to go for a value / blocker bet. I bet $15. This is a sizing that could get called by a weaker hand, and if I do get raised, I can let it go as the villain will likely have me beat. I'm setting my own price for showdown, so to speak. The villain raises to $100, and I let this one go, basically as planned. This hand, I pick up Ace King of Diamonds at under the gun +1. I open to $10. Everyone folds to the big blind, and OMC. She 3-bets to $25. Against this particular villain with a super tight range, I proceed cautiously and call in position. Her range for 3-betting is basically aces, kings, or maybe queens. It's heads up into a flop of King King 9 with 2 hearts. The villain checks. Awesome flop, as I actually believe I outflopped her here, hitting the trip kings. I'm just putting her on aces or queens at this point and want to keep her in. I c-bet for $15. She calls. As the dealer is dealing the turn, I'm just thinking to myself, please no ace or queen. The turn is ace of hearts. In most cases, this is the perfect turn card, improving my hand to a full house and completing the flush at the same time. But I am actually not super thrilled at the moment because against an OMC, this is either a scare card that will kill the action or it's the card that beats me if the villain has pocket aces. You guys might be asking, Keevin, are you actually really afraid of a one-outer? The answer is yes, I really am. This is honestly what I was thinking at the time. The villain's range is just so narrow. Could I get away from this hand though? From the title of this video and the clip at the very beginning, you guys already know the answer is no. But let's continue to relive my misery. The villain checks. I bet $25. She check raises to $50. With this action, my thought of her possibly having pocket aces just skyrockets all the way up. I actually go in the tank here. Anyone who sees or knows my hold cards will think I'm Hollywooding here, but no, I don't do that kind of stuff ever. I know it could be part of the game, but in my opinion, it's usually a waste of time that doesn't accomplish much. When I'm in the tank, I'm genuinely in the tank. And here I am tanking with what most people will say is the effect of nuts. Here is actually one of the thoughts that go through my mind. I'm thinking that I'm taking so much time here that I start to feel it's going to look so disrespectful when I table my hand. Because let's face it, will I ever let this hand go at these stack depths? If I do win, it just looks like Hollywooding or slow rolling. I look at the villain stack, and this is another mistake that I make. The villain didn't stack her chips in the normal way, which is having stacks of 20 chips each. She had her chips stacked in 4 or 5 chip stacks, and it looked kind of weird, and I miscounted and thought she had a lot less behind. I thought she had around 100 something behind when she actually had 200 something behind. Plus, I was still slightly tilted from a few hands earlier with top set running into a disguised straight. Ultimately, I went with, I'm not going to waste more of anyone's time. If she hit a one-outer, I'll just have to pay her off. I go all in. She snap calls. We go to a round that doesn't matter. We table our hands, and she indeed has pocket aces. This hand, I pick up King 10 of Diamonds in the small blind. Everyone folds to the cutoff who limps. The button folds. Against a late position limper, I raise it up to $20. The big blind calls and the limper folds. It's heads up into a flop of 8-4-7, all hearts. I check. The villain checks back. The turn is a 5. Since the villain checked back the flop, this card is likely a brick. I decide to go for a delayed c-bet to fold out ace high hands. I bet $25. The villain calls. The river is a queen, which should also be a brick. I don't think there's much I can rep here with my line. I don't have range advantage nor good blockers. I just wave the white flag and check. The villain checks back. I table my hand expecting to lose, but the villain tables King 9, and I managed to take this one down with King 10 high. This hand, I pick up ace 10 at the low jack position. Everyone folds to me and I open to $10. The hijack button and big blind calls. It's four-way into a flop of jack queen king with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks. Amazing flop as I flop the nut straight with the ace of diamonds, blocker, and backdoor. I c-bet for $30. Everyone calls. The turn is an offsuit 8. The big blind checks to me again. I continue to bet for value, this time for $80. The hijack jams all in with his remaining stack. Everyone else folds. I have the nuts, so I snap call. The river is 8 of diamonds, just about the worst card for the river, completing flushes as well as full houses. I table my hand, and the villain mucks. This hand, I pick up queen 10 at the cutoff. Everyone folds to me and I open to $10. Only the small blind calls. It's heads up into a flop of jack 9-5 with 2 spades. The villain checks. With an open ender, I c-bet for $10. The villain calls. The turn is a deuce, essentially a brick. The villain checks again. I could check back for a free card, but if I miss, my hand is pretty face up. I decide to keep up the aggression so I can potentially triple barrel if I need to. I do unblock the spade draw. I size up and bet $40. The villain folds. This hand, I pick up 7-8 of spades in the middle position. I open to $10. The cutoff and big blind calls. It's three-way into a flop of king deuce 3 rainbow. Everyone checks. The turn is a 6. The big blind checks to me. Pretty horrible flop and turn for me, as I completely miss and probably have 0 equity. But since the villains checked the flop and the big blind has checked twice now, I think I can take a jab here solely based on this position. Generally, I would advise against 0 equity bluffs, but then again, I don't always follow my own advice. Anyways, I go for an overbet of $35. And everyone folds. This hand, I pick up pocket queens in the hijack position. Under the gun +1 raises to $15. The action folds to me. I 3-bet to $45. Everyone folds to the initial raiser, who calls. It's heads up into a flop of 8-7-8 with 2 hearts. The villain checks. Pretty good flop for pocket queens, as an 8 shouldn't really be in his range when he opened early and called a 3-bet. I c-bet for $40. The villain calls. The turn is a 6 of diamonds. The villain checks again. This card completes an open ender with 9-10, but that hand is pretty unlikely with this line. There are now 2 flush draws on board. I decide to go for a sizing that could potentially jam all in on a brick river, as his line is looking like a pocket pair and maybe flush draw. I take a quick look at the villain stack and bet $80, setting up for a river jam with an SPR of 1. The villain calls. The river is another 8. The villain checks once again. This is just the perfect card. It greatly reduces the chances of him having an 8, even though I already eliminated that holding. All the draws brick, and his pocket pairs all improve to a full house. I even counterfeit pocket 7s and 6s, but his line just looks like pocket 9s, 10s, or jacks. I follow through with my plan and go all in. The villain tanks for a while, and then he finds the call. I table my hand, and he mucks. Later in the night, he tells me he had pocket jacks, which makes sense. And I would say this is a bit of a cooler, which I was lucky to be on the positive end. This hand, I pick up ace-jack at the cutoff. Under the gun limps, and the action folds to me. I raise it to $15. The small blind and initial limper calls. It's three-way into a flop of queen-queen-jack with 2 diamonds. The small blind very quickly just jams all in for over 2x the pot. +1 folds. I think for a bit here. I unblock the diamonds. I beat all Jack X. If the villain did have Queen X, it's a pretty odd line to take. I just have a gut feeling he is shoving light here. I flick in the call, and we go to a run out. The turn is a king, and the river is a 5. We table our hands, and I beat Jack 7 to take this one down. This hand, I pick up Ace 9 of clubs in the middle position. The action folds to me, and I open to $10. Everyone folds to the button, who 3-bets to $35. Everyone folds back to me. This particular villain is quite competent. We have been battling each other and exchanging chips quite a bit. We both know that our open ranges can be wide. I call. It's heads up into a flop of Ace 6-4 with 2 hearts. I check. The villain c-bets for $25. I call. The turn is a Jack of hearts. I check again. The villain sizes up and bets $65. With the flush completing, which I unblock, I can normally fold exploitatively at these stakes, but this villain is one that doesn't necessarily shy away from multiple barrels. With the Ace of Hearts already out there, his holdings with suited hearts just greatly decrease. I make the call. The river's a brick. I check. The villain bets $225, close to pot size. I tank for quite a while here. I don't think he is going for thin value with a better ace. I come to the conclusion that he is basically polarized to having a flush or nothing. With the 3-bet pre-flop, I start thinking about the suited heart hands he could have, which shouldn't be too many. I also think that this villain is capable of turning pocket kings with the king of hearts into a bluff here as well. It's a close one. With our history, I decide to call. We table our hands, and I lose to king 7 of hearts. Well played, sir. This hand, I pick up pocket 10s in the low jack position. The middle position limps. I raise it up to $15. The cutoff calls. Everyone else folds back to the limper, who also calls. It's 3-way into a flop of 4-6-8 rainbow. The middle position checks. I c-bet for $15, targeting value from any pair on the board. Both villains call. The turn is a 3, essentially a brick. The middle position checks again. I decide to continue betting for value here and hope to get 3 streets from 8x. I bet $40, and both villains fold. All right, here are the results of the session you just saw. It was, I believe, a loss, but it actually wasn't too bad considering the couple coolers that I ran into. Numbers will be shown, exact numbers will be shown right here. Right out of the gate, I was down $500, having top set and then running into a straight. And then not long after that, I had ace king suited, ran into aces with a board of king king ace. And this is actually a pretty fun hand to talk about. Yeah, could I have ever gone away there on the turn? So there is one hand that beats me, and there's exactly one combo of that hand, but all my reads, the signs, even my gut just tells me that that villain has that one hand. Yeah, what do you do there? Could I ever get away there at that stack depth? Yeah, you guys let me know in the comments. Anyways, this brings my total bankroll, or after that session, my total bankroll was this number you see right here. And this is actually not the end of this episode, because a couple days after that session, I did go to River Rock Casino to play another short session, so we're gonna cut to that later. Yeah, there's no recording allowed at River Rock, so I do this on-site hand review for a couple of hands. And just a warning to you guys, the background noise is not great, so thank you for bearing with that. And I'll see you at River Rock. All right, got this another case of awkward scheduling today. I have this basically 2 to 3 hours slot of free time, and best thing to do, head to River Rock and slip in a really short poker session. So again, River Rock, they don't allow filming, so not going to have any table footage, but hopefully I get into some interesting spots that I can share with you guys, and keep you guys posted, and see you guys later. All right, just finished my really short session at River Rock. It was a really good one. It's a shame that they don't allow filming, so no table footage for you guys. I did document a couple hands to share, which I'll be doing shortly. But to be honest, there weren't that many super interesting spots or big pots. Everything was mostly pretty straightforward, which is nice sometimes because it means I'm getting hands, cards are holding, and yeah, just being on the positive end of variance is good. Anyways, first hand. Okay, so I pick up ace queen of clubs on the button. There is an open and a call, and then I 3-bet to $40 and only get one caller, which is the initial raiser, and he's actually kind of short, so heads up into a flop of 6 deuce, and there's one club. Villain checks. Now I'm thinking, looking at a stack, his SPR is actually really close to pot size, and so some options right here. I can take the passive route and check it, right? Basically navigate the showdown, hoping ace queen is actually the best hand right now, and it holds. But that passive route, I think, is not a great one, because there's hands that he can have that are possibly beating me, right? There's ace king, and you're thinking he wouldn't have ace king here. Well, these are games that opening and then calling a 3-bet, like ace king is a very possible hand, and he might have some like pocket pairs, right? And I think his stack size is just enough for me to have fold equity against those. And I do have backdoor flush and 2 overs, so if my hand is actually not too bad in terms of I have some equity. So I decide to go for the latter option, which is just jam all in here. And villain thinks for a little bit and then makes a fold. So it's a good one. On to the next hand. This hand I pick up King Jack of spades at the cutoff. All right, so there is a late position open. Well, first of all, there's a straddle, under the gun straddle with $6. Holy shit, it's pouring right now. And, sorry about that. Okay, where was I? Late position open to $21. And then one caller. On to me, pretty good pot odds, pretty good position, nice drawing hand. I decide to cold call. Everyone else folds, so it's 3-way into a flop of 9 deuce deuce with 2 spades. Really good flop. I hit a flush draw. All right. So first villain checks, and then actually I'm just gonna head back the other way. First villain checks. Second villain bets $25. Easy call for me. And then first villain folds. So now it's heads up. Turn card, queen of spades, hit a flush. Villain leads out, and so he bets again, this time for $25. Really small bet. And I'm thinking, do I need to raise here? Now, this bet looks like a sizing that is just kind of scared, and he wants to keep the pot relatively small for a showdown. If I raise it, it's just so obvious that I have a flush, and it might be obvious anyways by the end of this hand, like if I river bet. But I want him to keep the betting lead. So, and I don't think there's any hands I really have to protect against, right? If you have a deuce, he's gonna find a crying call. If he has a 9, I don't know if I can extract any more value, but yeah, as long as I'm in position, I can still, yeah, maybe get a small bet on the river if he checks to me. Anyways, I flat call. River card, complete blank. He leads out for $30. And yeah, this sizing, this bet just screams blocker bet, wanting to get the showdown all day. So, only thing I'm thinking about is how much I should raise. I don't think I can ever rep a bluff here. So I just want a crying call from either 9x or just a deuce, right? Because the way I played it is just, yeah, flush possibility is just super prominent. I'm in raise it, make it $60. Villain size, and then starts tanking. And at this point, I'm just thinking, yeah, please call. It's just $30. And he does find the call. So I think the way I played it was maximum value there. But yeah, so 2 pretty good hands. And I'll share my results with you guys. Also a photo of my ending chip stack. Yeah, it was a pretty good day. And now it was sunny when I got here, and now it's pouring. So that wraps it up. Hope you guys enjoyed.